everyone, and welcome to another Camera Jabber video. Today I'm speaking with Peter Gauden, Andrew Garrihy and Ben Fletcher from Huawei, and they're going to talk to us today about the Next Image 2020 competition. Hi guys, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Great, Ben. Good to speak to you.
Thank you for joining me today. So what can you tell me about how the Next Image 2020 competition came around?
Wow, it's been in place for quite a while. So it's been in place since 2017, which is when we first started it. But its origins come from a little earlier. So back in 2016, when we first launched a phone called P9. And the P9 was our first collaboration with Leica. So it's the first time we had collaborated with Leica and brought that kind of technology and that kind of artistry and expertise to a smartphone. And that was quickly followed by a Mate 9 and then the P10. And actually all of those devices were about giving smartphone users a new way to express themselves, to express their creativity, to capture the world around them. And so it felt then like a natural extension that we should create this movement or this competition to celebrate the creativity of the people that were embracing these new smartphones, and particularly embracing the technology and the artistry that we now put in people's hands. Because before that, cameras were okay on smartphones, but they certainly weren't fabulous. But actually that was a real turning point, both for us and the industry. So it was really, 2017 was when it started, and it was really inspired by literally the change in creativity that we were seeing with photographers all over the world once they had this new technology and this new capability in their hands.
Yeah, I mean, smartphone photography really seems to have taken a leap forward, and Huawei's been really pushing that with the multiple cameras in a phone, and the depth of field control that you get is really incredible. But how many people do you expect, how many entries do you usually get for the competition, and how many are you expecting this year?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the good news is it's getting bigger and bigger every year. So to give you some context, last year we had 520,000 entries.
Wow.
Which is outstanding, and really the quality is really impressive. This year, as I think the 8th of June, we had 460,000 entries, and we don't close until the end of July. So again, it will be even bigger than last year, I expect. I expect we'll probably get somewhere in the region of 600,000+ entries, which is actually really exciting, because this year as well, we really asked people to use their creativity to kind of celebrate and share the positive power of creativity, especially photography. Photography has such an ability to evoke and create emotions, and to create really positive emotions, that this year our call to that community was, let's use the positive power of creativity and photography to share. And I think, the number of entries is testament to how warmly people have responded to that.
Are you seeing a different sort of range of images coming through with the current situation? Are people sending you images of different things?
Yeah, so that's really interesting, because obviously this is a global competition. And so, as we've seen around the world, the current challenge and the current pandemic has affected the world at different rates and different times. And we've been very, very sensitive to make sure people didn't put themselves at risk, to make sure they followed local regulations, etc. Now, the great news is there's features in our cameras that allow you to do amazing things regardless of where you are, whether you can go out or not. So things like our zoom capabilities, etc. On the P40 Pro, you've got 10 times hybrid zoom, 5 times optical. The Plus that's coming shortly has got 20 times hybrid and 10 times optical. So there's a lot of things people could do. And actually what we really encourage people is to try and get really creative in their own spaces. And actually, I think we've seen some wonderful, wonderful photos already that actually not just celebrate space in a different way, but celebrate individuals that are really close to us, especially in lockdown. So actually, I think it's been really fascinating. But yeah, we were very, very careful and really asked people to make sure they didn't put themselves at risk, make sure they respected the local regulations as they captured these beautiful
So
images.
were the categories devised with the pandemic in mind so that people could do them while social distancing?
No, they were devised before that. But the good news is the categories are quite broad, allowing people to still express their creativity. And there's some beautiful concepts in there. So near far is great, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it taps into zoom, and you can do near or far even from your window, assuming you have a window. Good night is lovely because it's about night, and even from our gardens or from windows, there's beautiful opportunities to do interesting things there. My favorite is faces, and some of the images I've seen, just capturing moments and capturing those expressions is really, really lovely. And then two of my other favorites is I really love live moments and storyteller. The storyteller, I think, is really a really beautiful category. But actually, more importantly, live moments, because we're seeing, an increased focus now on kind of short films and using film to do storytelling as well on these cameras. So all of those categories are very, very flexible, regardless of whether you are in lockdown or not.
Yeah, they are pretty broad, aren't they? And I imagine the storyteller, the current situation has triggered a lot of ideas in people's heads. So they're either looking back at things they remember and trying to capture that as a story, or just documenting the current situation.
Yeah, there's some really beautiful entries there. If you look on the website and then browse some of the entries, there's some really inspirational stuff. I think I'm really, really looking forward to the judging in September, because I think, our current context will create some beautiful entries and some beautiful stories.
And speaking of the judging, you've got a prestigious judging panel, which is led by Steve McCurry. That's
Yeah,
an exciting opportunity to have your picture assessed by him.
yeah, it's amazing. And Steve's incredible. I'm on the judging panel, certainly not qualified at all. Other than, I take a perspective of kind of how photography moves me. I'm certainly not an expert. That's why these cameras are brilliant, because they allow people like me to actually display a modicum of talent assisted by the camera. But actually, Steve is amazing. And I was lucky enough to be judging on the panel last year, surrounded by absolute experts in photography that really know what they're talking about. And it's inspiring to see them judge photography and consume those entries and debate those entries. Last year there was enormous debates around why one was better and one wasn't, and it was just amazing. So I think, yeah, for anyone reaching that stage of the judging, the final judging, to actually have, whether you win or not, I think to get it judged by that caliber of judges, I think it's a tremendous opportunity, and it's an absolute credit to people's work to get that far in the competition.
Yeah, like how is the process actually handled? Because if you say, you're expecting more than 500,000 images, how are you going to handle those?
Yes, so because it's a lot. So there's three levels. So the first one is there's an initial screening, which is done by a team of visual content creators, and that kind of screens them to make sure they kind of fit the categories, make sure they abide by the rules. It has to be on a Huawei device. We have to, make sure there's, everything's compliant. And then we bring in another team of editors and photography specialists to get a long list. And trust me, it's a very long list. Yeah, I think the judging went all day, all day, from I think 9 until about 7 at night. So it was a very long list. And then we have the final judging. And then basically in each category, you have a long list, and the judges literally go through together and prioritize and rank, and then do second, third rounds to get down to the final. And it's when you get the final that you get some serious debate about amongst the judges as to what should win and why it should win. It's a fascinating process, but it is a long and quite arduous process because of so many entries.
And will it all be done online this year, the judging?
Yeah, because of the circumstances, it's all done remotely. Like everything else in our life right now, it's all done over video conference or telepresence. So, yeah.
Is that how it's been handled in past years? Because obviously the judging panel are probably from all over the world.
No, in past years, the judging panel come together to judge in person. So last year we came together in Shenzhen,
Mm-hmm.
China, to judge in person. As I said, we spent a full long day doing the final judging.
Yeah. I can imagine what that's like, actually. I mean, not the scale, but I have been involved in judging a few competitions, and it's amazing how heated things can get. I mean, it's always friendly, but people get very passionate about photography,
Yes.
particularly when there's a message or something.
Yeah.
It's, people really fight for that image that they want to win.
Yes, it really surprised me. I mean, it's the first time, like, I'm certainly not an expert, but it was the first time I judged photography, and I was actually initially quite surprised by two things: how quickly the judges became emotionally attached to an image,
Mm-hmm.
and how hard they would fight for that image, because they really believed that that photographer, that artist, had done something truly special that had to be rewarded. Because actually, a lot of what this is about is, the winners are given, a great prize, but they're also given the ability to do more work. And a lot of what the judges are looking for is people that can inspire other photographers to do more of that work, to push it even harder in terms of this new medium with smartphone photography. And so that generates a lot of really strong debate about what is that level of work, not just a great image.
Yeah. Now, Huawei's smartphones have had a tremendous impact on the photographic industry. How much do you think the partnership with Leica has helped with that?
Yeah, so I'll hand over to Peter here to talk more technical. Peter is a product technical guru, unlike me. But I'd say that I think the thing about Leica brings tremendous expertise and a true heritage in photography. They were probably some of the first mobile photographers, if you think about their heritage. And if you think about some of the iconic images that's been captured on Leica cameras around the world, it was because they were so mobile, right? And so quick to capture a shot. So it's only fitting that we kind of got together. But I think they brought to the smartphone and to us, a real heritage, and took photography from a technical art to art. They're the masters of really artistic photography. So they are critical to our partnership. But Peter, is there anything you'd like to add more from a technical side, kind of how we collaborate and how we build kind of some of these genius combinations of tech?
Yes, sure, of course. The great thing about our relationship with Leica is a shared understanding. We're both companies that pride ourselves in the craftsmanship, meticulous engineering. But when it comes to photography, we have a shared passion, and that is the end product, the photograph itself. We both pride ourselves on trying to deliver that level of quality of image that everybody can be really happy with. And it's a symbiotic relationship as well. So the teams work very, very closely together. It's not that one team does a little bit of work and then hands it off to the other team. They all sit side by side when they physically can, remotely obviously now. But the engineering work is very tied closely together, and for some time as well. So Leica obviously help us with lens design, with overall optics design and camera philosophy. Very early on, you will have seen we actually adopted the Leica color standards. So if you're familiar with our camera setup, one of the big options that you can see is obviously the Leica smooth color, the Leica normal color, that is actually part and parcel of Leica photography. So we've really kind of taken that on board, and it's starting to pay fruit as well. So although we love our cameras, we know that consumers love our cameras, but from a professional critic perspective, we also see that DxO Mark also love our cameras. Right now, the P40 Pro is top ranking with 128 score, way ahead of all the competition. And as Andrew mentioned, we're just launching in Europe now the P40 Pro Plus, which actually has improved camera capabilities as well. So it will be really exciting for us to see what our relationship with Leica is able to achieve on that one.
That's going to be very exciting. In fact, I just got the P40 Pro Plus in yesterday for testing, so I'm looking forward to getting out with that and seeing what it can do.
Good. Yeah, I'm sure you will love it. As Andrew's mentioned, the zoom is just phenomenal. You'll have a really good play with that. I have a feeling.
Now, obviously, the Huawei cameras make use of artificial intelligence. Not something we necessarily associate with Leica cameras. They tend to be, well, certainly their M series cameras are very traditional. They've got rangefinder focusing and they've got all manual controls. But the AI technology is really taking smartphone photography to a whole new level. How do you think that's going to progress?
It's quite interesting. So this is the beauty of the relationship between Huawei and Leica. We're each teaching each other new things. So Leica is obviously now getting an understanding of what AI can do in terms of photography. We first used artificial intelligence in our Mate 10 series back in 2017, where we were allowing the camera system to use AI to understand what it was looking at and therefore fine-tune itself accordingly. But we've come a long, long way since then. Some of the new features that we've built into the P40 series are quite comprehensive and really complex use of artificial intelligence. Not only are we allowing the camera system to understand what it's looking at from a physical point of view, but we're able to now use artificial intelligence at the instantaneous moment you take that image to process it on a number of different levels. We're using a new system which we're calling our Huawei XD Fusion Engine, which actually breaks apart the image that's being taken, not only to look at it programmatically, so identify what's in it, but to break that up semantically, so you're looking at all the different elements and being able to fine-tune using artificial intelligence, things like the facial mapping, so understand what a face looks like and then how to light it if it's dark in difficult dynamic range situations. And then we're also providing tools such as our new Gauden Snap system, using AI and the power of our neural processing to allow you to do some post-processing things which never been done on a phone before. Giving the phone the control to understand if you're trying to take a shot of, say, a group of friends posing or jumping up in the air, exactly which frame is the perfect optimal frame. Because of course we know there's a human element in there. It's really difficult to get that perfect moment. And that's what we're using AI to try and deliver for you, so that perfect moment. And things like being able to remove erroneous passerbys from behind a shot. So this is actually understanding, allowing the AI to understand the human frame, the shape of the human body as it moves behind you, to be able to then say, okay, I can remove that. I can actually remove that physical person from the image, just as that post-processing moment. And it's really simple tools like that, which actually make the difference for users to take photography, which is quite a complex art, and try to simplify it in a way which is really quite engaging to users.
Now, the cameras make use of machine learning. Do you think there'll come a time when there is live machine learning within a camera? So basically, it can learn what you like. So, if you always select the image which is slightly darker or the contrast slightly higher or something like that, it will start to automatically make the images in that style.
I think that's quite complex. We do have a feature at the moment that our cameras can recognize a wide range of scenes, from sunset to sunrise, to recognizing animals, dogs, cats, cars. If you're taking a picture of a forest, there's a greenery setting, and it allows everything to tune for those specific elements. If you have a habit of wanting to turn one of those off, if you don't like greenery, for example, and you prefer that a rather muted shade of green, it realizes that that's something that you like. So it then switches itself off and doesn't promote that greenery setting quite so much. But AI is something which is quite complex in its learning in itself. It takes a lot of time to teach AI algorithms in a really comprehensive manner. So that's something which is quite really difficult to do.
Yeah, and as you say, we haven't actually been using them in smartphones for that long in smartphones. So it's relatively early days, but it does seem to have come a long way.
Well, we have thousands of engineers sitting in our research and development teams looking at artificial intelligence. It's one of the big topics that Huawei as a company has been working on. We spend a huge amount of investment on an annual basis to make sure that we can stay ahead of the curve when it comes to artificial intelligence, and looking at other aspects of AI and how it can help us in our everyday life. So it's not just about using artificial intelligence to bridge the skill gap in photography, because that's one of the great things about our cameras is, as Andrew has pointed out, he doesn't have to be an expert in photography to take some really, really good pictures, because the AI is helping him to do that. And all he needs to worry about is pressing the shutter button.
Now that's an interesting point. It leads me to another question, because people often sort of talk about a competition between smartphones and dedicated cameras. Do you see it that way, or do you think they complement each other?
I see a world where they sit very neatly together. They definitely complement each other. And this is part of the learnings that we've had from Leica as well. They are artists when it comes to high-end professional cameras, and the nanometer tolerances that they machine their lenses down to is just mind-boggling. But to try and do that on a mass scale in the size of fitting everything into a smartphone is a different skill entirely, which is where we come in. So it's very definitely that two sit side by side. There is a pro mode on all of our devices, which give professional photographers a little bit more tools, a little bit more control in their photography, rather than just letting the AI do the work and pressing the shutter button. But that's nowhere near as complex as a professional camera would be. And if you really do understand photography, then there is that element of being able to want to switch lenses, to really fine tune your settings. We build one of the most sophisticated smartphone camera systems to date so far, with versatility in mind. On the back of our camera system, we use some Leica terminology with the camera optics, Vario Summilux, which actually pulls on their heritage in Vario with long distance photography, Summilux with low light photography, two key aspects of our photography capabilities within our smartphones, because we want people to not only extend the times in which they can take photos. So even if it's in the dead of night, we let people really capture amazing photos. Or whether they are too far away from the object that they want to photograph. And then, for example, with the P40 series, and I know you're going to have a great deal of fun with the 10 times optical zoom of the P40 Pro Plus, we're extending that scenario in which people can take photography. But there is still the old adage that the best camera is always the one you have with you at the time. And in some instances, there is an advantage even to a professional photographer to carry a camera which is a little bit less obtrusive when they're trying to practice their art, and be a little bit more inside the action rather than sitting outside the action and just kind of behind a big lens and a big camera body, and being able to try and get into the action and take some really unusual and different perspective shots. I definitely think there's a world which those two concepts sit side by side.
I think it's also interesting for someone who's relatively new to photography, if they start using a Huawei smartphone and they switch to Pro mode, they'll suddenly discover a load of settings that they've probably never considered using before in a camera. You know, things like aperture and white balance and shutter speed. They can look at those things and start to discover what they do. And that might trigger them to want to learn more about photography. And then, as you say, they might decide that they also want to use a camera that has interchangeable lenses. But I think it's very unlikely that people are going to move away from smartphones because they have so many other functions. But it could actually, I think, lead people towards cameras. Would you agree with that?
I would. I think if you've got a tool in your pocket which opens you to a new passion, photography being one of those, then it's a really good portal into developing your skills further. And again, it's if you everybody's got a smartphone in their pocket. rather than having to invest in a huge amount of kit and carry things around, you can actually practice that craft in a really simple way on an everyday basis. You know, not everybody wants to leave the house every day with, you know, bundles of camera equipment, but what they might want to do is take their smartphone with them and then come across something which they say, oh, I really like the look of that. I want to take a picture of that. Whether they're walking down the street and they see some street art or a mural of some kind, or whether they're walking in the countryside and they see an amazing bird flying above them. Even now at a great distance using your P40 Pro Plus, of course, you'll be able to capture a beautiful image of that distant red kite flying and circling above you. We're seeing lots of those above us at the moment where I live. So yeah, I think it definitely allows you to tap into that passion.
Great. I love using aperture mode. And I like the fact that you can, I think it's, particularly for a beginner, it's handy because you can take your shot and then you can adjust the depth of field and the position of focus after the shot, which is like black magic, but it can really change the impact of your image.
And this is some of the things that we're doing, trying to give people simple tools to use. The aperture mode is a great example, being able to choose something ahead of time and then actually decide afterwards that you might want to tweak it a little bit. In our editing tools, we give you that capability, so you can actually play with things a little bit more. Although with the P40 series, we've actually got one of the largest sensors, so 1 by 1.28 inch sensor, which is huge when you compare it in the smartphone market, which even if you're using it on a standard setting, gives you a beautiful depth of field look on an everyday picture. Getting a really creamy, blurry background to something that you don't even need to approach the aperture mode or portrait mode to achieve.
So just before we go, Peter, which phone do you tend to use for your photography?
So I am actually using a P40 Pro right now. I, unlike you, have not received my Pro Plus yet.
Me either.
Oh, you either? Okay. Well, this is obviously key to our company. We prioritize our friends who know like to use these things and need to get them in their hands to run them through their paces, because we really do value people's opinion like yourselves. It's great. We take that feedback and bring that into actually what we're doing in the R&D teams as well. But I'm using a P40 Pro and it's amazing. I have to say, even with the 5x optical zoom, I'm taking some amazing photos with it.
Yeah, I tested that a little while ago for Camera Jabber, and I do agree. I think it's a very, very good camera. What about you, Andrew? Which camera are you using?
Well, I'm also using P40 Pro, which I love. And like Peter, I don't have the Plus yet. I'm going to get
Obviously, the review samples got sent out quickly.
Clearly, which is great. And like Peter, I live not far from the beach. So I walk on the beach most mornings. So I just love it. It's just fantastic. And I'm not like you guys. I'm certainly not an expert, but I love the fact that quite effortlessly I can capture really stunning images. Really stunning images quite quickly, that I'm quite proud of, because if I was trying to do it without the support of all that technology is talked about, I'm sure I wouldn't get the same results. But for me, it's a P40 Pro. Looking forward to be able to try the Plus, especially with the extra zoom. I'm super excited about that.
Well, I look forward to testing it myself, and I'll get the review on Camera Jabber as soon as possible.
I'll be looking to see what it is.
So thanks very much, everyone, for taking time out to speak to me today.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's been
Thank you. Bye-bye.